Hi guys. Today I have had a lot on my mind regarding our babies, specifically little Bean, so I just kind of wanted to share my thoughts with you today. Might get a little sentimental, so sorry in advance, but it is what it is. Back in February, Brandon and I planned a trip to Amsterdam, and this was before we knew we were pregnant with little Bean. We found out just a couple weeks later, and when we found out we were pregnant, we still planned to go. We'd be early enough that it would be fine and I could still fly that far. So we went on the trip, and while we were there, Brandon's aunt, who has also lost a baby, she sent me this poem that I had never read before. And I'll put the poem down in the description, but I thought that I'd read it to you. There was a girl who always dreamed of going to Rome. She was mesmerized with everything she researched and read. Everyone told her how wonderful Rome was. After years of planning and saving, it was finally her chance to go to Rome. She boarded the plane and took the long flight to Europe. When the plane landed, the pilot said, "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Amsterdam." She was shocked and dismayed. She wasn't supposed to be in Amsterdam. She was supposed to be in Rome. That was the plan. That was her dream. That is what she'd signed up for. She had to make a decision. She could either sit on the plane and sulk about being robbed of her trip to Rome, or she could explore Amsterdam. Soon after departing the plane, she discovered that Amsterdam had the most beautiful tulips in the world. Sure, Amsterdam wasn't Rome, but was equally wonderful in its own right. Had she ended up where she was supposed to go, she would have missed out on an amazing place she hadn't even known existed. This poem had struck me because we had lost Carter, and I mean, it can be applied to so many different things, but it was so applicable in our situation with child loss because you go through pregnancy and you're waiting for that day that you deliver the baby and you get to bring it home, and losing a baby like that, or losing a child or whatever, like, you expect things to go one way, and then when it's completely different, you're like, what the heck? This is not how things are supposed to be. This is not where I'm supposed to be at this point in my life. It's supposed to be so different. And it just was so fitting that we were in Amsterdam and she sent me this poem, and I had to stop and think, my life is so different than what I thought it would be like, but so beautiful at the same time. And I think that can be said for a lot of different situations, not just child loss, not just loss in general, but a lot of things. I mean, you go through life and you think things are going to be one way, and then they're not. And sometimes that's really hard and sometimes that's okay. But I remember reading that and thinking like, well, life without Carter is so much harder than I thought it would be, but so beautiful, and it's so different but so wonderful at the same time. And I was pregnant with little Bean, and so reading that, I knew like this is what it was supposed to be. Like, we didn't have Carter, but we were pregnant with this little baby, and even though we didn't have the test results yet, I knew she was a girl, and so I just remember thinking, yeah, this is like, it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be hard, but look where we are. We are in Amsterdam, and even though we meant to end up here, like, literally, the metaphorical Amsterdam was still just as beautiful. But I don't think that was really this video is gonna have so many components. I wanted to talk about the Amsterdam trip and all that, but I mostly just wanted to focus on little Bean today. Even though I feel like Carter's loss is the most tangible, I think about little Bean a lot. And I think that because I was working when we lost her, I wasn't able to properly grieve her. We had 5 or 6 days that from when we knew we were going to lose her until the day that we did lose her. And those were really hard days. And it kind of, I don't know, sometimes it kind of all feels like a blur. But I can sit here and I can pinpoint exact things that happened during those 5 days, and I can tell them to you in great detail. For those of you who don't know, or maybe we haven't talked about it enough, our story with little Bean was that I woke up in the morning and I went in to go to the bathroom, and I thought that I had leaked fluid, but we went to the ER and I hadn't leaked fluid. They said that her fluid was fine, and so we went back to our room and we were sitting there waiting for the doctor to come release us, and he came in and he said, you're gonna lose this baby. It has swelling on the back of its neck, and generally that's not a good sign. So we left thoroughly confused and really angry that this was going to happen again to us. And then 2 days later, no, the next day we got our genetic test results back from our doctor, and confirmed that it was a girl and that she had trisomy 13. So she had 3 13th chromosomes, which is generally fatal. Sometimes it's not, but for the most part it is. And so I remember, like, after that appointment, we went to my work, and you know, I've been crying, and so Brandon came in with me to talk to my boss and tell him, like, we can't do this, like, I can't be here today. And he said, okay, that's, you know, that's fine, take the time that you need. And so that day, it was a Thursday, I guess, we left my work and we immediately drove to Logan to go see Carter. I just knew that was where we needed to be. I wanted to take his sister to go see him. And then the next day we met with maternal fetal medicine, and her swelling had increased, and they said, you probably will lose her. There are other options if she does not pass on her own, but for right now, just, you know, go home, have the weekend, just think about it, and then we'll talk as time goes on. And so that weekend we were supposed to go see my family for Mother's Day, and I decided about an hour out of town that I wanted to stay home, so we turned around and came back and spent Mother's Day just me and Brandon at home with the cats and with our baby spirits around us. And that was really nice. I was really, really happy that we did that. And then the next day I went to work and I met a friend for lunch, and I had Costa Vida, and I got a Diet Coke, hoping, like, okay, maybe the caffeine will help her move, because I had felt her move before. I had felt her that weekend and I felt her that morning, just one big kick in the morning. And so I thought, okay, the caffeine should help her move around, and she didn't move. And so I called Brandon on my way back and I said, I want to go to the doctor after work. Will you come with me? And he said, of course. And so he met me there after work, and we went in to go do heart tones, and it was some nurse that I'd never seen before. And she walked in and I said, oh, is the doctor not here? And she said, no, he is. Do you need him to do this? And I didn't want to be high maintenance, so I kind of just was like, no, that's okay. You can do it. That's fine. And so she started to look for a heartbeat, and she couldn't find it. And I just felt so bad. I was like, I'm so sorry. I should have just had the doctor do it. And she's like, it's okay. Let me go grab him. And so he came in and he looked for it and he couldn't find it. And we went and did an ultrasound, and I remember him saying, guys, there's not a lot of fluid. And I said, how come? And he said, she's not making any. And so he kept looking, and, you know, Brandon and I were watching, and at one point he just said, she's gone. And I knew it. Like, I think that deep in my heart I knew that she was already gone. Like, I had felt her that one last time that morning, and that was it. And over the weekend, this is gonna get, like, kind of spiritual, but over the weekend I felt like I could feel her siblings kind of preparing for her to come back. And I think that morning felt like I could feel her kind of prodding at me, saying, like, hey, I'm back where I'm supposed to be. But I just wanted to ignore it. So I knew that she was gone, and from there it was kind of just like, okay, like, here we go again. You know, we're in the same room, we're gonna have the same conversation. Where do we go from here? And the doctor said, you know, if you want, I can send you to labor and delivery tonight or tomorrow, or I can put you on my schedule for a D&C tomorrow. And I said, I just want to do a D&C. Like, I don't want to go through labor with her. It'll be too hard. It'll be too hard on my body. Let's just do a D&C. And so the next morning we waited for a call from the hospital, and we went in, did a D&C, and then came home. And I think that, so that was on a Tuesday that we did it, and I was back to work the following Monday. And you kind of just have to pretend like nothing's changed. Everything's just back to the way that it was. And I think that having to do that made processing that grief really difficult. I feel like it was kind of smushed down into just a few days. and that I didn't get the proper time that I needed with her. And this little baby, I knew her before I knew that we were pregnant with her. I knew her right after we lost Carter. I could feel her. I could feel her talking to me, and I could feel her watching over me and helping me. And so to lose her, you know, it was really hard. I didn't have as much time physically with her as I did with Carter, but I knew her. And I wasn't given the amount of time I needed to grieve that at the time. And so staying home and not working, it's been so good for me. But it's also been really hard because there have been times that I just stop and I think, like, this is our life, you know? Brandon and I talk a lot about how we look at that time in the hospital, or we look at us in the cemetery, and it's almost like we're seeing it from the outside. Like we're looking at someone else's life until we really stop and think about it and we realize, oh, it's us, you know? And I was making a book for Little Bean because I made one for Carter after we lost him with, you know, pictures from throughout the pregnancy and pictures of him. And so I wanted to make this book for Little Bean, and in it I put all the letters that I wrote to her each week that we were pregnant with her, and I put pictures, and then I shared in there, I also put pictures of, you know, her little headstone and our time that we spent at the cemetery when we were spreading her ashes. And I finished the book, and right before I ordered it, I went back through and I read the very last thing that I wrote to her. And it was a couple weeks after, well, it was a week after the DNC. And I read it and I just started crying. And this was just last week. So it's been, you know, 10 months since we lost her. But I read it and I just cried and cried. And I cried for us. But I cried for, I mean, I don't even know who those people are anymore. I cried because it's so sad. And I can't, and sometimes it's so hard to think about the fact that, like, this is our life. Like, those were our babies that we lost. And I don't mean to just sit here and cry on camera. That wasn't the point of this, but it just hits me hard sometimes. And I'm really grateful for a husband that is so wonderful and that allows me to stay home and prep for this next baby. And to, you know, grieve the losses of the other ones because they still suck. They still hurt. But the places that we're going are going to be beautiful. And I know that. And I know that sometimes it doesn't always feel that way. But it'll be good. It'll be okay, and we will always have those other babies with us. So, if you've lost a baby or you're going through a hard time, it can get better. It might not seem like it. And some days will be harder than others, but you'll get there. So, thanks for listening to all of this, and thanks for knowing and loving our babies, and see you next time.